What is up, people of YouTube? I'm your host Vernon. This is Hemenway Harbor. Let's fish that. Alright, ladies and gents, I want to start off this video by saying a big thanks to everyone that always writes some comments down there. I do read all the comments you guys write, and I have to say, getting quite a lot of good positive feedback from you guys and quite a lot of encouragement, and that always makes me feel pretty good. So I do want to encourage you to continue writing some comments, especially some of the people that haven't written anything in quite a long time. This might sound strange, but I am kind of worried about people, so please go down there and write some comments so I can see that you're still doing okay. It just helps me feel a lot better about the community. I also do get quite a lot of feedback and some hints and tips here and there. And on one of my social media posts, links in the description, someone recently commented on one of my posts that if you want to catch bigger fish, you need to use bigger baits. Now, to be fair, I actually agree with this person. If you think about it, using something like a shad, no bluegill is ever going to eat a shad too small. You're going to get some bigger fish. Also, when I go down to the coast and do some coastal fishing, I tend to use an entire sardine, not chop it up into little chunks. I use a whole sardine to try and catch something like bluefish. So it does work to use bigger lures to get bigger fish. My first few tries out here at Lake Mead, I used entire anchovies as well. Didn't catch any fish, however. So that is what I want this video to be about today, to see whether size really does matter. Alright, so let's quickly have a look at the setup that I'm going to be using. On my one rod, I have my crappie rig. This gives me 2 hooks, and I'm using 2 small hooks, so I got 2 small chunks of anchovy on there. The reason why I like using this is I can always exchange the size of the weight that I'm using. If this is too heavy, I can go for a lighter one. If I need more casting distance, I can put on a heavier one without having to tie an entire new rig. That's why I always use this as my go-to. Having 2 hooks, quite an easy way to catch fish. And then on my second setup, I'm going to be using a little Carolina rig style thing. This is a plastic tube with the same swivel thing to exchange weights if need be. It can move freely up and down. And then I have a big size 1 eagle claw hook on here, and that I'm going to be using to try and catch some bigger fish using bigger baits. Alright, so we have our 2 rods out there. I already had some hits on this one. I think the coots were already stealing some of my baits. So we're going to have to rebait soon in any case. But we have the 2 rods out there. On the tall white one, I'm using the double small chunks anchovies, and on this one I'm using the bigger piece to see which one outperforms the other one. So the idea is to see on which one we're going to catch more fish, if bigger really is better than the smaller chunks. So now all we have to do is weight some fish. We're going to constantly rebait to make sure we have baits out there. One of the first problems that I do notice, however, about 30 feet in, I can still see the bottom. It's quite shallow going in, so having to get my baits out quite a distance to try and find deeper water. This is where something like a 12-foot rod would be useful, getting your baits out further. I am, however, using a little 8-foot and a 6-foot rod. So for me to get my baits out into deeper waters, I'm having to use my waders so I can walk in a bit and then try and cast out as far as I can. Alright guys, and then one of my viewers that asked that I do an update on using a casting net to find bait fish. Now the problem he's having is trying to find the fish, and once you find the fish, they're kind of scattered, they're not chased together. I did find a cove where the fish seem to be schooled all together in a batch here, so I'm going to quickly see if I can get some shad. Maybe we can live line one of the shad out there as well. Now, like I mentioned, I can see the fish schooling together, jumping around, but as soon as you approach them, they tend to move away from you. That is why it's hard to catch fish this time of year. You just need to try and corner them somewhere and see if you can catch them. Great thing to do is to imitate the birds. You want to stand still for quite a while to see whether the fish will come back towards you. I think by the time the net reaches them, they already swim away underneath. Bit deep here, but it seems that these fish are not schooled tightly together, so it's a lot harder to catch them like this. I think in a few weeks' time, the bigger fish will come in and start to school them together. It might be easier to catch them, so we're going to have to wait a bit longer. Otherwise, you need to be able to get out on the water and try and chase them together. Alright guys, it's been a couple of hours with absolutely no bites. Not even seeing some of the other fishermen catching fish. It's totally quiet out there. But what I'm doing, we have this little flat coming in. If you look back to where we came from, it's a gradual slope flat going out there. Lots of grass out there. That's why I stopped fishing there. I now moved spots. I'm now trying to fish closer to the retention wall back there. We have a big deep drop off, so rather than having the flat that extends out, it's a sudden deep drop off into deeper water. That's where I'm thinking the stripers will be. So we're going to cast out our baits out there, see if we can find anything out there. And this deep water runs back into these coves, and I'm finding some shad in these coves, but it is extremely difficult to catch them with the cast net. They're not schooled together. So at the moment I'm thinking that these fish out there aren't chasing the shad into tight net balls yet. That just tells me that the water temperatures aren't right yet. We have to wait for the water to get a bit cooler for the fish to start moving up shallower, chasing these bait fish together. Alright guys, just removed one of my rods because I was seeing some largemouth bass near this shelf. I removed my rod to throw around a little Ned rig. We have a little fish on. Might be smallmouth bass, but in any case, we have a fish. Yep, indeed we have a tiny little smallmouth on. Quite feisty little guy. Just gonna let him tire out some. Don't know how properly he's hooked. Smallmouth. So not our target species for today, but at least we're on the board with a fish. Nice lovely little smallmouth on the Ned rig. Want to get a good shot of him. Lovely little smallmouth. Thanks for coming to play, but we'll get back to putting out some baits. Let's get him back into the water. And there he goes. And there we go, another fish on the little Ned rig. Looks to be a largemouth bass, a bit smaller, but good to catch some fish at least. Lovely aerobatic display. We have a bigger bass down there as well following this one. These fish tend to travel in packs at the moment. Nice little largemouth bass. Second little fish for today. Nothing on the anchovies as of yet, but at least we're getting some fish. Let's get him back in the water. And there he goes. Alright guys, I've been struggling to catch any of the little shad that I'm seeing around, but I was lucky enough to get a little crawfish, so I'm quickly going to live line that out there, seeing maybe if one of these big bass will be more willing to go for a little crawl rather than seeing as how the anchovies aren't getting any hits. I'm going to cast this out there, let's see what happens. Alright guys, a bit of an update. I'm using a little rubber band like this when using the little crawfish. I don't like hooking it through the crawfish because I don't want to kill him, so I use a little rubber band. The problem with this, I managed to cast 3 different times with my little bait, and all of a sudden the third time I cast, the little rubber band broke, releasing the crawfish. So no longer have a little crawl to live line out there, so I'm switching back to this one rod with the 2 hooks, putting 2 little pieces of anchovy on there. Hopefully we can get a striper, because if we get 1 striper then I have a trifecta of bass. But for my second rod I'm going to be using some lures and casting that around to see whether I can get some different fish. And there we go, another tiny little smallmouth. He just jumped, spit the lure. That's why you need to keep the rod tip down to force them to not jump. Messed up on that one, but hey, at least we get catching something. Alright ladies and gents, I chose Hemenway Harbor because it's a particular spot that I've had pretty good luck in the past, but I have to say that with the lower water levels, it's a totally new place to fish, new place to learn where are all the deep holes, and what did we learn about bait sizes. Is bigger better? You need to understand that fishing is not just about are you using the right size lures or baits. There's a lot more that goes into fishing. When it comes to fishing, size is not all that matters. Size does matter, but it's not all that matters. Stuff like water temperatures, whether the fish are schooled together, whether they're out deep, or whether they're in shallow, the fish's behavior, all these things have an impact on how likely you are to catch fish. Now, had I stick to only using the little anchovies out there today, I would have completely gotten skunked. At the moment, these fish are chasing around bait balls of fish. I've heard from a lot of the guys out on the kayaks, there are big schools of bait fish out there and they're chasing these bait balls. Yes, early mornings you can find them up shallow, but as soon as the sun gets higher, these fish move out deeper. And it's up to us as anglers to find different ways to fish. Now, using that little Ned rig, I was quite lucky to catch some bass. I was just going through my tackle box and it was the first lure that I got. Throw that out there and we got lucky and caught some fish. Alright, but I hope you guys learned that fishing is quite complicated, and I hope you will give me a little thumbs up for that. Consider hitting the subscribe button, joining my community, and perhaps sharing this video with someone that needs to see it. But I think that's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.